All right, good afternoon, good morning, or good evening, or whatever time of the day it is that you are tuning in to the First Report. This is the First Report 14.0, and this is not Fletcher Tabito. This happens to be Mark Patterson, one of our newest members in our caucus. He's been here for a while though, but to be fair, it's the first opportunity I've had to interview him. And I'm Clayton. Welcome on the show, mate.
Yeah, great to be here, Clayton.
Yeah.
And I've finally made the cut. I've sort of hung around the fringes hoping to be asked, but finally I've got on, so my big moment.
The truth is he's always so busy. The times that we've asked him, he's like, mate, I'm speaking in-house. You have been particularly busy this week too. You've had how many speaking engagements inside the House on bills this week? Number one.
Yeah, well, I had 4 yesterday, which was a pretty heavy workload. It sort of comes and goes a bit, but yesterday there was a whole lot of things came together. I led off on the general debate, which was a real...
I thought it was a great speech.
Well, it was a real honour to be asked for that, and we had the number 1 slot, so that was great. And then I actually had a local bill for the Gore District Council, so a big issue down there around transfer of some water assets, and I managed to get asked to bring the bill forward on behalf of the community rather than the local National Party MP, so I was
huge honour.
A little bit pleased about that.
Absolutely. Now, for you that don't know Mark, he's down in Lawrence in the Deep South. He comes from a farming background, and any issues to do with primary industries, he's the man to go to and talk about. He's also doing some work with 1080. And well, we're all trying to do a little bit of work on 1080 and to get that moving forward, because we know there's a lot of concerned people out there. What can you tell us about the 1080?
Yeah, well, we're working behind the scenes with the trapping industry. We're trying to ramp up the ground control, I guess, and try to find out first and foremost what our capacity is to respond, because it has been run down a little bit over time. So how we can stimulate the fur industry, get the trappers back out there, and also look to scientific alternatives. So we've got to get a package of work together, but we absolutely want to reduce our use of 1080.
See, that's how busy we are. Look at the time. It's not even 9 o'clock in the morning. We're back into the house already. Those are the divisional bells. Hey, so that's really good. Now, what about EcoFur? Because as part of our coalition, can you give an update on where we're at with EcoFur as an industry lever to help alleviate some of the concerns of those people that we use 1080 to turn it into an industry that we currently have got, but we can actually get far more out of?
Yeah, well, the possum fur industry is actually a $130 million a year industry as it is. So it is actually quite a significant industry, and there's significant room, we believe, to lift that. So I think that's going to be the key, getting that market end going so we can create the environment where people want to get out and do trapping. And
my understanding that it's actually a little bit more than $130 million, that it's actually bigger than the Manuka honey industry at the moment, based at around about $160 million. But whatever the figures are, it's important for people to know that already possum fur is a high yielding to commodity, and we don't just have to kill possums and leave them dead in the bush. We can actually use their the fur and potentially use some of that meat. What do they call it? Kiwi bear. It used to be called kiwi bear, didn't it?
Yeah, something like that. Someone tried to call it apple-eating tree bear at one stage, which I think was probably over-egging the cake a little bit. But
good stuff.
So Clayton, Clayton, as we might know, you may not know, but he's our sort of backroom operator. He's the guy that operates in the shadows.
Dark and
mysterious. It is a little bit dark. It's a bit dark and mysterious to me, but there's always industry people, business groups coming in to talk to Clayton. He's our interface with business and industry, and I'm always a bit curious about what you're doing back there, Clayton. What's happening in the shadows?
Mate, it's not just all cups of tea and cake, I can tell you that. But look, I think the important part of politics and doing a good job when you're down here in Wellington is building good relationships with people and making sure that you've got a doorway that you can walk through, or they can walk through, to come and talk to you about their concerns. And those are concerns on a variety of issues. We've got housing issues that we deal with, and I guess being the whip enables me to be that conduit, so I can either say, look, you need to go and talk to Mark or Jenny on health issues, or go and talk to Fletcher if it's to do with the banking sector, or so on and so forth. So you do a lot of facilitating and initiating some of those conversations that people find difficult to get started, and some of those conversations I take right through till the nth, and help with legislation and changes and those discussions. It's a role that's exciting, but you're not out there in the front pages like some of the ministers are, which I quite enjoy.
Yeah. And the employment relations law is something that you've been pretty heavily involved in trying to shape that legislation a little bit.
Well, it's a portfolio that I've had for second term now, and having a background in business and understanding the complexities of hiring, firing, and engaging, and paying wages and finding the right staff, I'm very, very up to date with. And so there's a lot of added value that I can actually bring to those discussions, understanding government's point of view, understanding what businesses need and want, and so facilitating that. And I think Shane Jones on Tuesday articulated it perfectly when he was asked a question in the House by Goldsmith about what was he referring to about some of the concerns in the provinces about some of these employment relation amendments that are coming up. And he just said what we've got to be careful that we don't do is we put cost structures onto the provincial businesses that are connected to the big cities. So obviously to run business in a city is more expensive, you've got potentially higher volumes and turnovers, but you've got to make sure that we don't forcibly pass on those cost structures. So we've got a bit of work to do in that space, but we're running out of time. So thank you for joining us, Mark. We'll look forward to have you back on the show when Fletcher's back, and Fletcher will be back next week. So stay tuned. Thank you very much for tuning in to First Report. See you.